Hey, Rebel Bankers, this is your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Money School. So today we're going to talk about some interesting things. We're going to talk about you becoming the bank. Now, the reason I wanted to do this topic is many years ago, actually 2014, when Larissa and I first began our big venture into flipping houses, doing rentals, and that. I mean, I was doing real estate before that, but at that time, we got educated. We were paying for mentors. We were paying for coaches. We were going through an education program. And I'll never forget, the one thing I always remember is the people we were borrowing money from, the private lenders, the hard money lenders, they were always the bank. And I remember one of them, his name's Greg, he always used to say, the best part about real estate is being the bank. And me and Larissa always used to sit there and we used to say, someday, remember that key word, someday, and that's a word that doesn't exist for us anymore. Someday, we're going to be the bank. And that someday in our minds was when we had lots of money that we could loan out just like these folks were doing. But then as things progressed and, fast forward from 2014 till now, I learned that being the bank isn't what I thought. Being the bank didn't have to be someday. Being the bank didn't have to wait, and being the bank wasn't what I thought it was. And today, we're going to debunk that mystery, that myth about becoming the bank. I want all of you to understand what I didn't understand in 2014 so you can all begin your journey of becoming rebel bankers. We talk about that all the time, right? Your journey to becoming a rebel banker. And it has to start somewhere. And if you watch these episodes, if you're following the Real Estate Money School, you're learning a lot. You're hearing about people's journeys. You're hearing about everything that it takes to be successful. And you're not just hearing about it from me. You're hearing about it from some of the most successful real estate investors there are. Now, today, let's take just a quick second and talk a little bit about your journey. Your journey in real estate is going to come in a lot of shapes, sizes, and different flavors. But the one thing that it's always going to include is the need for money. So a lot of you worry about that need. A lot of you probably lose sleep over it like I used to. Like, where am I going to get the money for this deal? If I put this property under contract, what's going to happen, if I can't find the money? And if you're a wholesaler and you're putting deals under contract, you're probably sitting there saying, boy, I wish I could take a couple of these down. I wish I had the money to take some of these downs, and someday I'll be able to build that rental portfolio. Folks, my rebel bankers, forget about someday. Someday begins today. So let's get into that and let's begin with your journey on how to become the bank. So in this talk, I guess I want to really solidify exactly what being the bank means. So there's a lot of people out there that talk about being the bank, right? There's the infinite banking concept, which you hear me talk about a lot, the money multiplier, okay? You hear a lot of people talking about being the bank, but a lot of people really don't understand what being the bank really means. So I want to take you back into a PowerPoint slide to talk to you a little bit about what a bank actually does. And I want to show you the inner workings that you've probably never seen on being a bank. Okay, so if you owned a bank, what does that look like? What do banks actually do? You might think you know, but do you really understand what that means? Well, let me start with this. The first thing I need to ask you is, do you believe in compound interest? I know you're using compound interest, but do you believe in it? Well, the answer is probably yes, right? You've been brought up your whole life to believe in compound interest. You've been brought up to believe that you're going to save money. You're going to put it in a savings account. You're going to put your money in investments. You're going to put it in 401ks and IRAs. You're going to save money, right? So in saving money, you're parking your good dollars today and you're letting that money grow through compound interest or other avenues. So the chances of you believing in compound interest are probably good, correct? Well, let me ask you this. What business in the world uses compound interest? Is there any business in the world that uses compound interest? Well, you're probably thinking, well, let's see, Chris, what business would use compound interest? Well, banks. Banks use compound interest, don't they, Chris? No. Banks do not use compound interest. Banks charge you compound interest. Banks pay you compound interest. Banks do not use compound interest. And here's a little example that I like you to do. If you think banks use compound interest, what I'd like you to do is take a $20 bill. Write your name on it. Now, they do call that defacing the bill, so they might throw you in jail, but let's just try this out. Write your name really big on that $20 bill. Bring it into the bank and give it to the teller, but before you hand it to her or him, I want you to say to them, can you put this $20 bill with my name on it in my box in the back? In my box with my name on it. And I'll be back either later today, next week, or next month to grab my $20 bill out of the box. Is that how banks work? Absolutely not. Banks take your $20 bill, and before you even hand it to them, that $20 bill is gone, because the people in those glass offices or those cubicles at your bank are loaning your money out immediately. You see, when you make a deposit to a bank, the second you hand the bank that $20 bill, that $20 deposit becomes a liability to the bank. That is a liability. And just like you don't like liabilities, do you? Do you like having credit cards, which are liabilities? Do you like mortgages, which are liabilities? No. You wish you had no liabilities. Well, banks don't want liabilities either, except for the biggest difference between you and a bank is you've been taught your whole life that the only way to get things that you want is by taking on debt called liabilities. So banks understand this as well, but banks do something different. You see, I already told you the example. You gave the bank your $20 bill. The bank then lends your $20 bill out, and your money is in motion. You see, banks don't use compound interest. Banks pay you compound interest. Banks charge you compound interest. They do not use compound interest, and they never have. They keep money in motion. Just like my lips are flapping right now, like the wind is blowing outside, like the cars are moving. Everything in the universe is in motion, and money must remain in motion in order to work. Otherwise, if money's not in motion, it's either a liability, it's losing money, or it's lazy money, right? So those are the only three things that money not in motion are. They're a liability. They're basically someone else is making money on your money, or that money is just being lazy. And I talk about that all the time. So if we can agree that banks don't use compound interest, is there any other business in the world that uses compound interest? The answer is no. Car dealerships, they don't use compound interest. They're moving those cars off the lot, right? They put the cars on the lot. They're selling those cars. Grocery stores, do they use compound interest? Absolutely not. If they did, those groceries would just sit on the shelf. They buy groceries, the groceries go out. That money's always in motion. Every business in the world keeps money in motion in one way or the other. However, we are not taught how to do that. See, from a young age, we are taught to literally give up our good dollars. The dollars that we have today, those are our best dollars. Can we not agree on that? Your dollars you have today are your most valuable dollars because your dollars are available to you. You're in control of those dollars that you have today. And if an opportunity comes to you, you can act on that opportunity because you have control over your money. But now let's talk a little bit more about that, right? So if your dollars today are worth the most, and they certainly are, and if you don't believe me that your dollars are worth more now than they will be in the future, just ask yourself or ask anybody, how many candy bars could you have bought 20 years ago for $1? A lot more than you can today. And the other thing too is taxes. Do they go up or do they go down? Well, taxes go up. They're always going up. So even if they don't go up, they find more crap to tax us on. So here's what we've been taught. And this is not how you become a bank, just so you know. This is what not to do. But this is, first we got to debunk the myth. First, we need to unravel the millionaire mystery as to why millionaires don't do the same things with their money as we are taught to do. So we are taught to give up our good dollars today so that then we can play this game with this thing called compound interest, and our money will grow with compound interest. And then later, someday later, that amount of money that's grown, they will pay us that money back, but they will pay us back with weaker dollars. So you might be saying, Chris, I don't understand. Well, they will pay us back with weaker dollars because as your money grows, you have more money. Your income potentially will go up. And I hope you agree that your income will go up. So down the line, you already agreed with me in saying that taxes are going to go up or they're going to tax us on more. So that money that you've amassed through compound interest, which no other company uses, is now going to be taxed at a higher rate. Or you're going to be taxed on more things. So they're paying you back with weaker dollars. Essentially, you give up your good dollars today so that somebody else, the institutions, the financial institutions, the banks, can use your money by keeping your money in motion. And as they're keeping your money in motion, which you should be doing, they're keeping your money in motion and making money on your money because they've got you brainwashed that compound interest is really the best thing for you. Folks, if that's the case, then let me ask you this. Why is it that we do things with money that we would never, ever do with things that money buys? So what do I mean by that? Well, would you ever go to the grocery store, buy a loaf of bread, come home, put it in your freezer, close the door, come back to that freezer 5, 10, or 15 years later and take that loaf of bread out and enjoy it? No, you'd have a freezer burned block of bread that wouldn't taste good. Let's try another one. Would you ever buy a car? A brand new fancy car? Would you ever buy a car and wait 5, 10, or 15 years to drive the car? Would you ever buy a house and wait 5, 10, or 15 years to live in that house? The answer is probably no, no, and no. But again, I just said that. We do things with our money that we would never do with things that money buys, and I just proved that to you. Banks and the wealthy and institutions know how money works, but we don't because we've been taught all wrong. So in becoming the bank, you need to think like a bank. You need to do the same things as a bank. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but remember what I said earlier when I first heard the concept of being the bank, and I was like, oh my God, sweetie, talking to Larissa, my wife, I said, we got to become the bank. That's the ultimate. You make money while you sleep. You don't have to swing hammers anymore. We don't have to deal with contractors anymore. We don't have to deal with realtors and crappy buyers and crappy sellers. We can just sit back and be the bank and make money while we sleep. That was an awesome concept. You see, but I missed one thing. I missed the simplest thing about that whole thing. And what I missed is I thought I needed my own money. I thought that becoming the bank meant I needed to use my own money, but that is not the case. That is not what businesses do. That is not what banks do. They use everybody else's money. Wall Street uses everybody else's money, right? You deposit your money in that thing called an account, a savings account, a brokerage account, whatever. And that money grows through compound interest so that they can use your money and they just show you on a piece of paper your minuscule little return. Well, let's do a little exercise, shall we? Let me share my screen with you real quick. I want to show you something really cool here. I want to show you, and actually here, let's do it this way. I want to show you how banks really operate. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to share my screen with you right now, and I'm going to show you exactly what banks do and how banks actually use money. You can see me up in the corner, but I want you to stare at this. So this is how a bank works. Now, you got to do a little bit of role play. So the first thing we're going to assume is that you have money that you're going to deposit in the bank. And if you don't, then you're just going to pretend, because here's what we're going to do. You see, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to deposit $100,000 of your money into your local community bank. And let's just pretend for today that you found a really good bank that pays you 4%. Now, I know you probably don't have a bank account paying you 4%, but again, we're going to pretend you found a really good bank. So you deposit your 100 grand in that bank because and actually let's think about that for a second. Remember we talked about compound interest? Let me just teach you how trained you are to think that compound interest is a good thing. Not just you, but everybody else. If you had 100 grand and you deposited it into a bank and that bank had a big sign out front that said 4% interest, people would flock to that bank. There would be lines of people out the door at that bank trying to get a piece of that 4% interest. But now let's look at how funny this is, because if that's the most important thing, then you are brainwashed to think that compound interest is awesome. Now, 4% is a really good interest rate. I'm not discounting that, but let's just look at what a bank does with that money. So you deposited your $100,000 into the bank, okay, that really good bank paying you 4%. Now, when you deposited that money into the bank, that bank you just created a liability for that bank, because now your deposit, although it's an asset to you, it's a liability to the bank because the bank owes that money back to you. So that bank has to take their assets and turn them into liabilities. And before I'm done with you today, I'm going to show you how to have your house, which is now a liability. Your primary residence is a liability. I'm going to teach you how to turn that liability into an asset, because you don't like liabilities. So let's turn as many liabilities as you can into assets. And all you have to do is you have to have your liabilities pay you an income, and that turns them into an asset. If they're income producing, they are now an asset. So let's just talk a little bit about a bank. Your $100,000 is now sitting comfortably at that bank with this thing called an FDIC insurance. That's a joke. But anyway, that's what they do. They promise you that the money is insured by the FDIC. Look that one up and you'll get a good laugh, because the FDIC doesn't have enough money to guarantee all of our money. Not even close, not even a third, probably about a 16th. I don't know. Anyway, you deposit your money in the bank. Your bank then takes your deposit, which is a liability, and turns it into an asset by lending it back to you to buy a house. And maybe it's not you. Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's anybody out there. It doesn't matter. The bank lends your money out to somebody to buy a house. And let's just pretend that that house is, the mortgage on that house is a 7% interest rate. Okay. And also, even if it was a 2% mortgage and you'd be like, oh my God, that'd be a really good mortgage. No, it wouldn't, because mortgages, they've got you all fooled on those too. But I'm not going to go into that today, because I just want you to think or look up the volume of interest, not actual interest rates, because that's not what matters. The interest rate doesn't mean a thing. It's the volume of interest. You are paying literally over 80% of every one of your mortgage payments is going to interest, not to your equity of your house. Just key little point. But so the bank took your deposit. It was a liability. They loaned that money out to you or to somebody else to buy a house at 7%. So then what happens? Well, then at that point, the seller who got paid for the house deposits the money back in the bank. Crap. Now the bank's got another liability, right? They don't want that money. So the bank's got to loan that out as quick as possible. So they loan it out to somebody who wants a car. Maybe your BMW there, that looks like an M1 or an M2 there. So they loan it out to you to buy this M2, and that M2 is going to cost you 8%. Okay, because that's going to be the car loan. So the bank took the seller's money now and lent it out to buy the car. So then the car dealership, they deposit the money back in the bank. And the bank's like, okay, I got to lend that money back out. So they lend it out to your neighbor, excuse me, your neighbor who's looking to do a new kitchen and bathroom in their house because they want to improve the value of that liability. So what they do is the bank lends it out to them for a home remodel loan. And that costs more because it's higher risk. There's really there's no security or no collateral on a home remodeling loan. So the bank charges 9%. Okay. Then you pay the contractor with that home remodeling loan. The contractor deposits the money in the bank, and the bank's got to turn that money, right? Because the money's got to be in motion. So they loan it back out to somebody who spent a little too much money in Las Vegas, and it's okay. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but they have to do some debt consolidation because they just got in a little bit of trouble. So the bank charges them 12%. Then the bank, you with that debt consolidation, or the bank pays the credit card companies. And what do? The credit card companies deposit that money back in the bank. Do you see what's happening here? Who is in control of all of these transactions? And for those of you listening to this, I want to just explain to you what happened here, because I know if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're probably maybe a bit lost. But again, let's just do a quick recap. You deposited $100,000 in a really good bank paying you 4%. That deposit was a liability. So the bank turned it into an asset by lending it out to your neighbor or you to buy a house. Okay. So then once that house is purchased, the money goes to the seller and they deposit the money in the bank. Then the bank lends it out for somebody to buy that nice BMW M2, which is what we're looking at, is a nice blue M2 with black wheels. Pretty sweet car on the screen. So if you can't see that, I'm just describing it. Then you get the car, the dealership gets the money from the bank and they deposit it back into the bank. Okay. Then you want to do a home remodel. So you take out a home remodel loan. The money goes to you for that home remodel. You pay the contractor. Contractor deposits the money in the bank. Then the bank lends that money out to somebody that got in too much trouble in Las Vegas for a debt consolidation loan. The debt consolidation loan pays the credit cards off. The money went back into the bank. All I'm saying is, for those of you that are just listening, who is in control of all of these transactions? Is it you? No, it's the bank. So if you were to become the bank, you would be in control of all these transactions, which you indeed can become the bank in your own life very easily. But the other thing too, now let's just really look at what just happened here. Let's run some numbers. So if you're watching, this will be easy. If you're listening, just pay attention here. I'm going to do the math for you. So remember, the bank's paying you 4%, but then the bank lends it out at 7%. So that's a 3% difference, right? So the bank made 3% on that transaction for nothing more than turning your liability of a deposit into an asset. Then the bank lends that money out for a car at 8%. So they're paying you 8 minus 4 is 4%, right? Okay. Home remodel loan. So the bank gives you a home remodeling loan at 9%. Okay. 9 minus the 4 the bank's paying you. That's 5% the bank's making on you. Then that debt consolidation loan for that person that's just had a little too much fun in Las Vegas, they charge them 12%. Okay, 12 minus 4 is 8%. So let's really look and add up those numbers. So 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 8, that's a 20% return, is it not, if you add all those up? So 20 minus the 4%, or we already took the 4% out of those, so that's a 20% return. Okay, 20% return the bank just made on your money, and they paid you for. So how much did the bank actually make? Do the math. How much did the bank make? Many of you are like, well, since you already netted out the 4% that the bank's paying you, the bank made 20%. Absolutely not. The bank made 500% on your money. Because you're just not doing the math right. You're just doing simple math. What is 4 divided into 20? It's 500. 500%. Okay? That's how much money the bank made. And the funny thing is, the bank didn't just make 500% because they got lucky. You see, all banks make 500%. That's just how they do. And they're always in control of all of these transactions. And the other thing that's important to understand is, how much risk did the bank take here? That was calculated risk, right? They've got collateral for the house loan, the mortgage. They've got collateral for the car, okay? The home remodel, they more than likely have collateral because they took a second position in your house. The only one that they don't have collateral is the debt consolidation loan, and that's because they charge 12%. The bank is in control of every one of these transactions, and they're using your money and my money, not their own money. That's why they're making 500%. And if I went one slide further, banks make between 400 and 1,300%. That's what they make on the money you leave there, because you've been taught to just believe in this thing called compound interest and give up your good dollars today, and then they're going to pay you back with weaker dollars later. So again, this just proves everything that we've been talking about being the bank. And if you don't believe me about banks making this, because I know there's the naysayer or two that are going to listen to this, why don't you just go to BauerFinancial.com, BAUER financial.com. Bauer Financial will show you how much money banks make on all the money that you leave there. So any bank, I don't care what bank you want to put in your bank of, whatever town you're in, and then put whatever year you want to see how much money they made. You see, banks make money on your money day in and day out. And this just proves that. That's all that does. And it just proves exactly how that works. So I'm going to stop the sharing on this. So stop share. There we go. So all that exercise did is proves to you what banks do. But the next question is why can't you do that? Well, you absolutely can. So you can do that with any asset, right? So you can go out and you can create your own infinite banking system. And that is probably the most unbelievable thing to do, and I don't have time today to talk about that, but if you have questions about how to create a banking system that pays you a guaranteed 4% plus dividend, that allows your money to continually make that 4% plus dividend even when you take the money out of the bank. You heard me right. If you had 100 grand in that really good bank that I'm talking about, and it's called infinite banking, if you took that money out, you're still making interest and dividends on that money if it's built properly. So that's infinite banking. Go to themoneymultiplier.com, themoneymultiplier.com, and read all about infinite banking, read about the money multiplier and how you can set up your own banking system there. But what if you just wanted to talk about your house? What if you wanted your house to pay for your car and you wanted to take that house, which is a liability, and turn it into an asset? How would you do that? Well, it's called a home equity line of credit. Most people right now have equity in their homes. Unless they've already tapped into the equity, they have hidden equity sitting in their homes because the value of houses has gone up. So all you would do is you would take a home equity line of credit. You would do the same thing that the bank just showed, right? Loan the money out on a real estate deal, loan the money out on a car, which is a little riskier, but just make sure you learn how to do this. And I don't have time to teach you how to do it here, but that's exactly what we teach people how to do at the Money School and the Money Multiplier. We teach you how to become the bank, and we teach you the right way to do this, the ways to protect yourself and also to protect the borrower, because you got to protect both sides. So you take a home equity line of credit out, you loan that money out. Now the home equity line of credit, let's just assume it costs you 5%. And if you loan that money out at 10%, did you not just make a free 5% like the bank did? Absolutely. That's all the banks do. Okay, the banks, like I showed you, they pay you 4, they charge 7. They pay you 4, they charge 8. They pay you 4, they charge 9. Okay, well, your bank is going to charge you 5, you're going to charge 10. They're going to charge you 5 on your home equity line of credit, you're going to charge 12. Well, the spread right there, depending on how much money you have in equity in your house, will more than likely pay for your car. What if it's a 401k? What if all your money's sitting in these things called qualified retirement plans because you've been brainwashed to believe that that's what you should be doing with your money, giving up your good dollars today so you're paid back later with higher taxed dollars, right? Give up your good dollars today to be paid back later because that's just a smart thing to do. Well, that's what they want you to believe, but that's not what banks do. So you take a loan from your 401k. Don't take money out because that will be taxable and probably a penalty. You take a loan from your 401k, and then that 401k is going to charge you interest on that loan. How much? Well, it changes, but let's just assume it's the same as the home equity line of credit. Let's assume it's 5%. The thing most people don't understand is with a 401k loan, that 5% interest that you have to pay back, who gets that money? Does the institution? Does your company? No, you do. That 5% goes back into your account. So you're literally paying your loan back with interest. You're being the bank. Super smart. Okay. But then you take that loan, that 50 grand you just took out of your 401k as a loan that you have to pay back at 5%, and that 5% goes to you. I'm just covering the bases here. I'm repeating myself so you get this because this is new way of thinking. This is a new way of thinking that you're not used to. So you pay yourself back at 5%. You take that 50 grand and you loan that money out. You loan that money out to someone for a real estate deal, for a car, just like the bank does, right? You loan that money out and you charge 10%. Did you not just make a free 5%? All right. Did you not just make 5%, or really you doubled your money? No, you did even better, because remember the 5% on that loan that you took, you're paying that back too. So you're making a bunch of money on this. That's using a 401k. Gosh, folks, don't even let me get started on IRAs. You can use IRAs to do all the same stuff. You can be the bank using your self-directed IRA, not a regular IRA. Don't let the Vanguards, the Fidelities, the Prudentials of the world make you believe that you can self-direct your IRA as it sits. You need to find a specialized custodian that knows how to self-direct, that allows you to self-direct your funds. And what do I mean by self-directed? Well, if you have a question as to whether or not your IRA, whether it's a Roth or a traditional, is a self-directed, here's a little exercise. Call your self-directed IRA provider, okay, or whoever it is. Call Fidelity, call Vanguard, whatever the name is on the top of your statement, call them up, and I want you to ask them this. I was just wondering if I can buy a dairy cow with my IRA. The person on the other line is probably going to mute you and laugh, or just laugh out loud because they really don't think they heard it. And they're going to say something like, wait, did I hear you correct? You want to buy a cow? Yeah, I'd like to buy a dairy cow with my IRA funds. Can I do that? The answer most certainly will be no, but if you truly had a self-directed IRA, you indeed could take your money from your IRA, go buy a dairy cow, go out every morning, milk that cow, fill up your bucket, go out to the road, sell that bucket of fresh whole milk to anybody that drives by, take the money from the sale of that milk, deposit it back into your IRA, and that is your return. A self-directed IRA allows you to do that. So if it allows you to do that, what else can you do? Well, you can do everything that you just saw the bank do. You can loan that money out, and you can basically charge crazy amounts of interest on that money. You see, folks, being your own bank, becoming the bank, doesn't have to be complicated. All you need to do is look at what banks do and mimic it. All you need to do is look at what the wealthy do with their money and mimic it. And I just showed you a couple ways to do that. Heck, I showed you how your house can pay for your car. I showed you how to take money out of your 401k without penalties, without interest, and how to double that return. I showed you how to use your IRA money to buy a dairy cow. But we're not going to buy dairy cows, but you could also use that to loan money out to buy real estate, okay, for somebody else. You could do anything. You could do the best thing, the biggest secret of the wealthy, and do infinite banking and make money on money, even when that money's not in the bank. Folks, if any of this stuff sounds really interesting, that is because it is. It is interesting, and it is a different way of thinking. So don't overthink it. Just do what they do. All I'm going to tell you is thank you all today for joining me. I know we covered a lot, and I don't want to go too long, and there's a lot of resources out there. So again, the resources, if you want to learn more about this, if you want to learn about infinite banking, the biggest secret of the wealthy, go to themoneymultiplier.com. If you want to learn about all those other things, you can check out our programs at the Money School. So you can check that out by going to moneyschoolrei.com/masterclass, and we'll teach you all about that. Or you want to learn about all that stuff, grab a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide. And you can grab a copy of that. Actually, we have a free copy we're giving away right now. Just go to moneyschoolrei.com/book. moneyschoolrei.com/book. And grab yourself a copy of The Private Money Guide to learn all these principles about how to become the bank. You guys, this stuff is fascinating. It has taken me more than a decade to learn this. It has taken me going up and down, having money and then losing it all, getting money again and losing it all to start really learning how to do this. And I just told you some of the biggest secrets right here in this episode of the Real Estate Money School. This is how you do it. But if you're not seeking this information, if you're not taking this information and actually applying this information in your life, this is all for nothing. So here's what I want you to do. I want all of you to become a rebel banker. And in order for you to become a rebel banker, you have to start somewhere. I don't care if you go to the Money School website and grab a copy of my book and read that book. That is starting. I don't care if you go to the Money Multiplier, scroll all the way to the bottom of the website and click on Members area, enter the password Bank with Brent, and watch the video there on how infinite banking really works and how you can get all the money back for all the cars you're ever going to buy, drive, and own. That would be a start. Anything you do right now, more than just listening to something and wondering when you should start, would be a great step. So all of you, take some action, do something productive today, start taking steps to learning how to become the bank, because you know what? It is just amazing when you learn how to be the bank, because it's just way more fun. So today we did a lot of dropping bombs. Okay, I dropped a bunch of bombs on you, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will catch you all in another episode of the Money School, the Real Estate Money School podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.